Welcome to the 610 CKTB Niagara Candidates Debates. Today, the riding of Niagara Centre. This wraps up a week of one-on-one candidate interviews with CKTB morning show host Tim Dennis. Those are weekday mornings, just after 7:30. Candidates from the Green Party, Conservatives, Liberals, and NDP invited to each one-on-one and each debate. For this one-hour debate program, candidates will be given 90 seconds each for an opening remark and toward the back of the hour, 2 minutes each for closing remarks. In between, we hope for answers to my questions, to the listener questions, also interaction among the candidates. Today in our CKTB studios, we welcome Conservative Liana Villela, Liberal Vance Badaway, NDP Malcolm Allen, and Green David Clow. Before we started, candidates drew random lots for the order of the opening and closing remarks. These statements will be kept to time during the discussion part. No clock will be running. It's basically up to the candidates to be heard and get their message across. So we begin with opening remarks. Liberal candidate Vance Badaway.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon. Born and raised and continuing to reside in the Niagara Centre riding, I have devoted many years serving my customers within two companies that I currently operate, as well as through many years working with service organizations in the public, as well as through many committees, boards, commissions, and agencies, and being mayor for 17 years, or city councillor actually for the first 3, and then mayor following that for 14 years, regional councillor, as well as I said, being involved in our communities. Through many travels throughout the region and from speaking with many residents and businesses, I do recognize the issues of Niagara Centre. I live it and I breathe it each and every day. This election is one of the most important in decades, and residents of Niagara Centre have a very important decision to make, a decision that will shape the future of our riding and Canada for years to come. This is a decision between more of the inaction and lack of results or immediate change that will see one of the most progressive agendas in recent memory be put in place. Friends, I can tell you that this agenda is tailor-made for Niagara Centre and will finally deliver some of the needed results that our riding deserves.
Thank you, Vance Badaway of the Liberal Party. Next up in the opening remarks, Green Party candidate David Clow. David.
Hello, thank you very much. And good afternoon to everybody. I'm the Green Party candidate, and I'm here to tell some hard truths. I want to be clear, since you guys can't see what's going on at home, I'm going to be the only candidate not reading from paper. I'm going to be telling the truth. We have 3 candidates here, outside of myself, that are here to represent their party. They cannot act on your behalf here in this community. They'll be whipped. There's a whip in the caucus that forces them to vote in a certain way. I want you to pay attention to the language that they're using. They're going to be trying to get you to think that they can act on your behalf. But everything they're putting forward is a contingency. It's all an if-then. If you vote for me, then you'll get this. Malcolm's going to talk about the $15 an hour that he cannot promise. It's a provincial matter. Leanna's going to talk about a drop in tax. Vance is going to talk about his boost in infrastructure. And I want you all to know that these are not the crux of the argument. These issues, though very important, are just a small facet of what we need to pay attention to. There's so much more. The Green Party is the only one putting forth a comprehensive plan. When I spoke about the grounds, the brownfields that are polluted, the grounds around here, and why there's no jobs, Malcolm called it gloom and doom. When I spoke about free tuition and moving toward not strapping our students with debt sentences, Vance called it a dream. When we talked last night about saving the hospital and preventing the 2-tier system that Leanna's party wants to put forward, she called it empty promises. I want to ask you to please think about more from this. Thank you.
David Clow of the Green Party. Up next, opening remarks, the Conservative candidate Liana Villela.
Good afternoon. Thank you, listeners. I'm fortunate to be a woman living in a country which has afforded me the opportunity to thrive as a business owner and now the opportunity to serve my community in so many capacities. This election is about keeping Canada safe and our economy strong. We're a country of moral values and sound fiscal planning, and your vote is going to ensure this country remains the envy of the world. We recognize that your tax dollars are your tax dollars, and by implementing programs that support Canadians, we're keeping your taxes low, and we're increasing spending on the things that Canadians have told us matter to them. And we know we're putting money back in your pockets. Are we perfect? No. We're going to continue to work hard for all Canadians. As a business owner and a mother raising 2 children, I know I can't afford higher taxes, and I know you can't either. I need each of you listening today to ask yourselves if you can afford to lose your income splitting, your universal child tax benefit, your tax-free savings, and the promised tax credit for single and widowed seniors. If the answer is no, your vote for the Conservative Party will ensure these tax-saving measures are protected. Voters know there's no better place for families in the world than right here in Canada, and under the strong leadership of Prime Minister Harper and the Conservative Party of Canada. Thank you.
Leanna Villela, Conservative candidate, and opening remark, we finally go to NDP and Malcolm Allen.
Well, thank you very much, Larry, and good afternoon, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here and talk about the issues that matter to us here in Niagara Centre, and of course that matter to the folks across this country. And I would remind folks in Niagara Centre that this riding actually incorporates this end of St. Catharines, just actually across the street, Larry. The riding begins and runs all the way down to Lake Erie, and so it literally encompasses the west and south end of St. Catharines, Thorold, Welland, and of course Port Colborne. And so let me just talk about some of the things that need to happen. We actually need a manufacturing strategy in this country. We've seen what's happened since the mid-90s when we don't have a manufacturing strategy. The Conservatives' latest manufacturing strategy is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And clearly what come out of that, not only was it done in secret, but clearly the economists are saying, in fact, Jim Balsillie said today that it's not a good deal. I think most folks would know Jim Balsillie is one of the founders of the BlackBerry. And so clearly when they talk about it and the auto sector talks about it, because the auto sector is still an important driver in our economy here in Niagara Centre, the GM plant is actually in the riding. And so really what we're looking at is a manufacturing strategy that doesn't lose jobs, but creates jobs. TPP will lose thousands of good-paying manufacturing jobs, specifically in the auto sector. It's not a good deal for Canadians. That's why we won't be bound by that deal. We'll make sure that actually those manufacturing jobs are kept in this country.
Malcolm Allen of the NDP, thank you very much. That concludes the opening remarks. These are the candidates of Niagara Centre. This is a Niagara Votes 610 CKTB debate. We'll be back with questions and discussion in just a moment. For a second, you guys have a couple of minutes. Here's your CKTB weather forecast. Cloudy and gray for most of the afternoon. Still about a 30% chance of showers for the afternoon. It'll continue windy out of the northwest. Tonight, we should be clear. As a matter of fact, some of the lows near Lake Ontario, especially risk of frost overnight. And then a beautiful weekend. Tomorrow, sunny, high 15. Sunday, sunny, high of 19. And Thanksgiving Monday, sunny, windy, and a high of 20. St. Catharines right now, that wind is gusting to 40 clicks at times. Downtown, 17 degrees.
This worker will agree that 8 hours staring at those same four walls.
News Talk 610 CKTB is your election headquarters. Niagara Falls, Niagara West, Niagara Centre, St. Catharines. Niagara Votes 2015. Your vote, your voice. Online at 610CKTB.com.
Niagara Votes 2015, presented by Callis Home Hardware on 4th Avenue and 3rd Street, St. Catharines. Make it your first stop.
From cycling the Parkway to rowing the Henley, we're active in Niagara. News Talk 610 CKTB. You're listening to Niagara Votes 2015. Your vote, your voice.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we had the opening remarks from our four candidates in studio with me. Liberal Vance Badaway, Conservative Leanna Villela, NDP's Malcolm Allen, and the Green Party David Clow. Now in our segment here, candidates, I'm going to ask questions. I'd like to go to each candidate, ask others to allow the candidate to at least answer the question, and then we can get to points, counterpoints, discussions on our questions and rebuttals, and in our next segment we can maybe mix it up a little after that. Now, I know this was raised in opening remarks this week. It was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was approved in principle. What is your party's stance on the trade deal, on international trade in general, and how do you feel personally about this agreement? I'll go in reverse order of the opening remarks. Malcolm Allen of the NDP.
Well, thank you very much, Larry, and it's an extremely important question, clearly, for the folks who live here in Niagara Centre and across the region, and actually all the way down to southwestern Ontario. What we saw with this secret deal, and let me just say, these deals are negotiated in secret. We don't really know what the details are. We've got broad strokes from the government. They don't always give us the truth in the broad stroke. Initially, they said, well, don't have to worry so much in the auto sector, albeit the Prime Minister said, this is going to hurt, initially is what he said. We've only reduced the content to 45%. And then we wait 2 days later and we find out, well, no, that's not really wholly true. It's actually 35%. So we're going to see a reduction in content from 62.5 under NAFTA all the way down to 35 under TPP, which literally puts tens of thousands of auto jobs and manufacturing jobs in southwestern Ontario, here in Niagara as well, in jeopardy. And so what we are saying quite clearly is we're not going to be bound by that particular agreement. If it is what we think it is, then we're not going to be bound to support it. And what we're going to do is fight for those jobs that belong to us right here in this region, and in fact right here in this riding. But when it comes to trade, we're not opposed to trade, but it has to be fair trade. It can't be just simply give jobs away. You know, if we follow the line of Australia, there is no auto sector in Australia anymore. It is gone. Zero. There are no more auto producers, manufacturers, or parts makers in Australia. That's where this government is headed. That's the wrong sense for us. We believe that manufacturing is a linchpin in our communities, and we need to keep it there.
The question is about TPP and international trade. Leanna Villela of the Conservatives.
We think this is a very good move and in the benefit of all Canadians. And I want to just clarify, done in secret seems to be used a lot, I think as a fear mechanism. We have experienced negotiators that are experienced at this, and that's what we did. We put them to work, and they came up with the best deal for all Canadians and Canadian businesses. The TPP is going to open up access to 12 other countries and 800 million consumers. That's something that people are quite excited about, and I've had many companies call us and tell us that they're quite excited about this. We had concerns about the auto sector, definitely. The Prime Minister did make concerns about that, but we've also had a good feedback from the auto sector, and they don't seem to be as concerned as Malcolm seems to be concerned about it. The dairy farmers, another thing, the supply management. Our Prime Minister said that he would protect supply management, and he's done so. And it's protected now for the next generation. And these are things that have come out to us in different quotes. The dairy farmers had said, in a quote, in a tweet, no negative impact, and supply management will be preserved for the next generation. So that came right from them. So all this fear-mongering can stop. It came right from them. Dairy Farmers of Canada, Forest Products of Canada, Canada Life and Health Insurance Companies, Canadian Council of Chief Executives, Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Canadian manufacturers. TPP will give better access to a market of more than 800 million consumers to Canada's small and medium-sized companies, and will benefit Canada's manufacturing and exporting companies and the Canadian company as a whole. That's coming right from them. So the fear-mongering from the other parties is absolutely ridiculous.
David Clow of the Green Party.
Yes. Last night after the debate, I told Vance that I liked him. I think he's a good guy. And the reason is because these two that we just heard from are so misleading. There's no honesty at all from these two. Last night they told us that we don't know enough about this to even talk about it. This morning, Malcolm's using it in his initial pitch. Let's be clear, folks. This is equivalent to corporate protectionism. Only 6 of the 30 chapters are on trade. The CBC and Canada Post will be gone. Our laws can be overturned to maximize corporate profit, giving up our sovereignty to foreign corporate interests. This is going to end up with a mass migration of Canadian jobs and profit, blocked websites, and so much more. The legal experts are about to comb through this hidden legislature. And Leanna, if this was protecting farmers or the audio industry, why are they converging upon Parliament to protest?
Vance Badaway, Liberal Party.
Well, I think for the most part we have to really look at this whole TPP agreement. I think we haven't had a chance to. The only party that has had a chance to is the Conservative Party, and as Leanna mentioned, those that have negotiated a deal. I think essentially that the politics has to be removed from this process. It's business, and as was mentioned earlier, we want to ensure that it's good for business. There hasn't been any transparency. We do want to look at the details. Now we have to be clear about this. This has to be ratified yet. The next governing party has to go into the House and ensure that those I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and of course ratified accordingly. But at the end of the day, we have to ensure that our manufacturing sector, all sectors, are actually protected. As was mentioned as well, our supply management. Will our supply management be protected? And if it's not, then it's not ratified, and we have to move on with a different agreement. We're being sort of told that the gun's at our head, and if we don't do it now, we can't do it at all. Well, that's not true. We have a responsibility. We have to listen to those folks from the business community, from the unions, and from those that are working throughout the nation, and ensure that their concerns are being dealt with. And if they're not, then of course we don't move forward with this deal based on ratifying the overall TPP. again, when we look at the overall bigger picture, yes, we are opening up our markets to many more countries, many more customers, a huge base of business. But at the same time, we can't do it at the expense of us here in Canada, of the employees that work within the auto sector, of those that are in the dairy farmer industry. We can't do it at their expense. As again was mentioned, we have to ensure that within any free trade deal that it's fair trade. And Canada has seen the demise in a lot of sectors because of the free trade deal that was struck by the Conservatives back in the 90s. But again, we can't make the same mistake twice. We have to ensure that we look at this, we ensure that there's not going to be any negative effect, and move forward with the proper deal for Canadians.
Vance Batterby of the Liberals, anybody have a point?
Let me just
Malcolm Allen,
let me just talk to the Conservatives' talking points around the supply management system is now intact and whole. The supply management system is based on a couple of things. One was they took no government subsidies, that they made their money in the marketplace. This government has decided that that's no longer going to be true. Just in the dairy sector, we're not sure what's going to happen in what we call the feather sector or the poultry sector. $4.3 billion is going to have to be poured into the dairy sector in compensation over the next 15 years because that's how much of the market they're going to lose. So to suggest that they didn't lose market share is false. What happened is they did, and it's going to take $4.3 billion worth of compensation when they used to get none. When it comes to the open market of this so-called 800 million new customers, it's also false. We already have free trade agreements with the United States, with Mexico, with Peru, with Chile. The market is 650 million. So literally what this TPP agreement will open up is Japan. So the total, and Vietnam, and part of Cambodia. So literally, if we think we've got big trade aspects with them, we just signed an agreement with Korea last year. And lo and behold, they've blocked our red meat exports already to Korea. And our trade deficit is the highest it's been in history. So all these free trade agreements, this Conservative government and the Liberals who jump behind them every time and support them, you know, Vance's leader, when CETA was announced a year ago, he jumped right up and said, I support it. Hadn't seen it, just said, I support it. I would expect he's probably going to do the same thing with TPP. The bottom line is, these aren't deals that are good for us. We've proven it time and time again. Our deficit in trade balance points to the fact that we sign these deals and our trade deficit keeps going up. If we're going to sign deals, it has to be good for Canadian workers, has to be good for Canadian business, and it actually has to put people back to work. This deal is not going to do that.
David Talao, the Green.
Yes, this is why I'm here, folks, because I want to point out something. This conversation, we could be switching the letters TPP for the light armored vehicle debate, and we would be hearing the exact same debate. We talk about the issue for a second, and then Malcolm goes off on some tangent, name dropping. What we have to look at here, folks, is these three parties are talking about slight variations of the same thing. The rationale behind creating these deals that, thanks for pointing that out, Malcolm, Korea did refuse our beef. These are not beneficial to us. None of this is going to work. But in the same breath, Malcolm says that, oh yes, we have to pay attention to whether or not we can do this because we need to be able, we don't want to lose jobs. Same thing with the light armored vehicles. If we're not paying attention to our moral imperative and we're only talking about money and this party line politics, then nothing's going to be ever better for anybody.
All right, we're going to stop there and get to a short break. Our news update is coming up, and then we'll return with the candidates debating candidates of Niagara Centre this week.
There's only actually three things you can say. There's no information yet, and it has to be ratified. Third point, once it's before us and we learn about it, then we either do it or we don't. It's that simple.
Is it not 12 countries? Does it not open up to 800 million more customers?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, because it includes Peru, Chile, Mexico, and the United States. You already have free trade agreements with all four, which are the major bulk. You'll get the new ones. You'll get is Vietnam and Cambodia and Japan. You already have Korea.
But you use the TPP to amend the problems that you have in the free trade agreement. That's what you
TPP will
do.
supersede NAFTA.
Exactly. But you use the negotiations to fix the wrongs that were agreed to within the free trade agreement.
You're going to find
They already
same
did
thing
in
happened
what
with
they
CETA.
said in the
Whatever's in
TPP, labor
TPP
laws.
is
There's
it.
certain conditions that are
Well,
put
there
in
should
that
be
are quite impressive, actually.
labor laws, quality assurance, as well as environment.
From what
I
I
don't
don't know what
know.
anyone else has seen, but
I haven't seen it.
These are points that are given to the press. This is
Yeah,
not anything just for me.
One of the problems that I've always had is that when you're within a free trade agreement, it has to be fair as well. So when you're trying to compete against countries that don't have to abide by the same labor regulations, the same environmental regulations, and the same quality assurance regulations that we do,
Well, we have that with China right now.
it's an imbalance. Well, yeah, there's an imbalance there, though, Leanna. You know, like when you see products coming into Canada with lead in it, when you see employees getting paid $1 an hour versus what we have to do
Well,
with
that's
minimum wage.
unacceptable. And I
And
think
then you got,
everyone at this table can agree that that's
and then you got them spewing crap in the air when we can't. So how can you compete against that? Bottom line's going to be different. Your
So
margins
what's
are
the
different.
choice? Protectionism? Keeping everything here?
The choice is to make sure that you leverage the TPP to, in fact, fix the field
trade
that's
is important.
unlevel. But you can only trade if you can compete. If you can't compete, you can't trade. I see it every day in my business. Not specifically with me, but with my customers. And then you got anti-dumping to boot.
Good
What they did in
afternoon, it's
Montreal.
1:30. I'm Bonnie Heslop. Here's what's making news. CKTV is hosting the Niagara Centre All Candidates Debate with host Larry Fedoric. In studio, NDP incumbent Malcolm Allen, Conservative candidate Leanna Viella, the Liberals Vance Badaway, and David Plow with the Green Party. The first question about
Everybody's getting my name right. That's rare.
reaction on the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. The NDP's Malcolm Allen says that the secret deal will impact the region.
What we saw with this
That was
secret
quick.
deal, and let me just say, these deals are negotiated in secret. We don't really know
How much did it cost you for this, Malcolm?
broad strokes from the government. They don't always give us the truth of the broad stroke. Initially, they said,
What is the price of your campaign, out of curiosity?
albeit the Prime Minister said, this is going to
Check Elections Canada website when we send it in.
Ballpark.
content to 45%.
You can check Elections
Then
Canada
we wait 2
website.
days later, we
Doesn't it make you feel bad that we have to pay for that?
35%.
Conservative candidate
I just
Leanna
simply
Viella does
play
not
by the
agree.
rules, my
We
friend.
had
You play by the
concerns in the
rules.
auto sector, definitely,
If you,
the Prime Minister
yeah, well, the rules are flawed, sir.
But we've also had good feedback from the auto
That's people.
The Parliament will have to change it.
That's people's money. You're smiling and shirking your shoulders at right now. You know what I mean?
The dairy farmers, another thing, the supply
We'll get a
management.
rebate as well.
I'm not taking any rebate.
Supply management.
I got for what? For my 100 signs? For my 100 signs?
Here's the rules. If you don't
I get in the newspaper by doing things, not by paying for it.
if you don't want it, they'll send it to Elizabeth May and the party.
Tuesday morning with Tim Dennis. An unusual incident on the 3W in Niagara yesterday.
And instead of smiling about it, why wouldn't you say that it's flawed?
OPP in Niagara
change it,
looking
Parliament.
to witness
Now listen.
an accident on the
You
QEW
change it, Parliament.
yesterday.
You
It's
can't change the rules.
hit by a transport
check
truck.
Yeah, but if you disagree with the rules, you don't take part in the game. You stand up against it.
Also, like,
And hit
you know,
again
they
by
always sort
another
of can't
unknown
keep the guys
vehicle.
on Steve.
Withdraw your nomination.
Why this guy's
Withdraw your
been the
nomination.
president
If you don't agree with
of
CB.
CB since like
I'm here to stop you guys.
Colored two-door sedan. The accident happened just after 6 yesterday morning in the westbound lanes of the QEW
Yeah, great, thank you.
at Lake Street in St. Catharines. Anyone
Especially when you don't even live in the riding.
Niagara OPP. Noel St. Clair, 610
Do you live in the riding?
He has a home in the
say.
riding.
Roof is closed again today as
does
Vote in the
have
riding, my friend.
Jays
Careful.
host the
I have a
Texas
voting card.
Rangers
Be
in
careful.
Game 2 of their American League
Careful.
Division Series. Texas
Well, I wouldn't
defeated the
spread
Jays
malicious
5-3
gossip.
in
You
yesterday's
can't
opener.
substantiate.
And right now the score 3-3 in the top of the third.
So you do?
Taking a look
You
at
live-
time
Voting
saver
card for the
traffic,
riding.
we
How
are
would you
running
vote in the riding just
collision-free
like
on
you
regional
did 2011?
roads and highways,
skip the T's
checking the
here,
border
right?
bridges.
My wife will be as well.
Do you reside in the riding, sir?
Heading into Canada, waiting 15 minutes. Same situation at the Rainbow Bridge.
Can you answer that?
Cars heading into Canada, waiting about 10 to 15 minutes. Checking the Welland Canal bridges.
Well, thank you for
In
answering that.
Melbourne, we continue to have the Main Street Bridge off limits, and the Clarence Street Bridge is fully
find it
raised.
offensive.
If you're in St. Catharines, the Lakeshore Road Bridge is fully raised. In your weather forecast, a mainly cloudy day. There is a chance of showers this afternoon. A bit windy, high of 18.
Who's taking the
Tonight
TPP?
clearing up, low of +2. There is a
God, I
risk
hope
of
not.
frost.
The TPP?
Tomorrow, sunshine becoming a mix of sun and cloud in the afternoon, high of 15.
Larry?
On Sunday,
sorry,
Are we
sunshine
sticking
and
to the
windy,
TPP?
high of 19.
No.
And then for the
We're gonna get some
Thanksgiving
other
Monday, sunshine, windy, high of 20.
do you have
With
something-
a slight
you
chance
had
of
something
showers
to
in the
add?
evening.
All right.
Right now it's 7
So you have-
degrees.
If we can do that
So you have
briefly,
two
I wanna
homes,
get another
Malcolm?
question.
You have two homes then?
Niagara Votes 2015, your vote, your voice. Text us
my life is
anytime
any
at
of your business.
61010. I'm Bonnie
Well,
Heslop.
you're
News is next.
vying for a position that I'm allowed to vote for.
610 CKTV.
Just out of curiosity. Little chit chat. I think the people in the riding deserve to know. Especially when you said you were going to move to the riding.
Do I own 2 residents?
You do. Lucky man.
I am indeed. Worked hard all my life, so did my wife.
Yeah, the three-wheeled bike, they call it. You remember that?
You're suggesting my spouse has done something wrong?
I don't know. It was a term that people call the foreman on the job or whatever.
That's good.
I find it offensive that you would insult my wife.
I never said anything about your wife, sir. You misinterpreted what I said. I said three-wheeled bike.
What that means?
A three-wheeled bicycle is apparently something that people who work with a white hat in the job pedal around on and not really work. I have a dry sense of humor.
You're listening to Niagara Votes 2015. Your
In our studio today, the candidates NDP Malcolm Allen, Green David Clow, Conservative Leanna Villela, Liberal Vance Badaway. Before the break, we were talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Everybody kind of got a rebuttal in or an answer except Vance Badaway. We ran out of time, and you did want to add something to that before we move on.
Well, thank you, Larry. And I think it's very important that people recognize that when the free trade agreement was struck back by the Mulroney government, it was flawed. And a lot of the sectors, in particular the manufacturing sector, has experienced that throughout the many decades that it's been in place. Having said that, we do have an opportunity here with the TPP before it's ratified in the House to in fact fix the wrongs that were created by the original NAFTA agreement. We can leverage this process to ensure that it's more fair trade versus free trade, and fair trade for those workers, for those companies, and as well as those that are trying to be on a level playing field. It's tough for us to right now compete against countries that may be part of this agreement or are part of this agreement with respect to quality control, with respect to labor issues, with respect to the environmental regulations that are placed on. So we have an opportunity here to level the playing field by adding into this agreement those factors, so that therefore when we are trading and our companies are trying to compete with other areas of the world that are involved in this agreement, that of course we all abide by the same quality assurance regulations, that we all abide by the same labor regulations, and we all abide by the same environmental regulations. And if you don't, then you're not in the agreement, period. And that therefore we're on a level playing field. We then therefore can compete, and therefore we can put our people back to work.
Thank you, Vance Badaway, Liberal Party, and I know we could discuss that particular topic for the hour, but I would like to move on to some other issues. There's a survey released today that said the biggest concern for a lot of people, the biggest issue, is health. Yet federally, it's not being talked about a lot, so I would like to talk about it here, health issues. I realize there's a provincial component, but there is a federal component, so we have aging population and health care, and what are the solutions you or your party would bring to these issues? We'll start with the Conservative and Leanna Villela.
Thank you. As we had a wonderful debate last night on healthcare, a lot of good information and a lot of robust conversation. And ultimately, as we discussed and all parties agreed, that the federal government's responsibility is for the transferring of funds to the province. And as it stands right now, we don't get much say in how the province spends those dollars. So the concern was the health accord, and coming due, I believe, December 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So that will be open for debate. And we were asked, would I be willing to sit down and revamp or put my suggestions in based on the constituents of this riding and how they felt towards a new health accord. And yes, because Niagara Centre is in desperate need of attention when it comes to the health issues. Provincially speaking, they've let us down here. There's no doubt about it. But I won't get into a provincial Liberal government because, again, our concern is at the federal level and ensuring that transfer payments are made. We've increased our transfer payments from $20 to $34 billion since 2006, and another $27 billion will be transferred to the provinces within the next 5 years. So at the federal level, we're making the transfers. To say that we've made cuts is an absolute wrong and misinformation allegation against the Conservative government, because we've done our transfer payments of 6% since coming into leadership in 2006, and we will continue to make our transfer payments. How the province spends them is what's debatable here. And my opponents feel that there should be more say. I tend to agree on that respect, that we should be able to have an impact on how our money gets spent in our provinces.
Leanna Villela of the Conservatives. Let's go to David Clow of the Green Party. David.
Yeah, well, there was one factual statement in what Leanna was speaking about, and that was that the debate last night was the crux of the argument was about the mechanism behind which the funds from the federal government will get to the municipalities. What she's talking about, everything else was totally non-factual. The Harper government did not renew the health accord in 2014. In 2011, the Harper government announced a major cut to the Canada Health transfer of $36 billion. So everything she's saying is baseless. So I want to talk about what happened last night at the debate. Leanna was pushing her two-tier healthcare system and privatization, and Malcolm was talking about his inaction and how it has led to the blue team not taking part in what he was doing. But I asked him, what is the mechanism, Malcolm? What is actually going to take place? What is your party putting forward to provide this integration between the different levels of government? The Green Party is the only one putting forward a Council of Canadian Governments, which is going to provide this integrative collaboration between all levels of government, including Indigenous communities and other community organizations. That mechanism, and he wouldn't respond last night. Neither of them would respond. But the fact is, he answered in his question that we need to move toward national plans. National, yes, like the Green Party's putting forth the National Health Care Plan, a National Pharmacare Plan that will save $11 billion a year through bulk buying. But there is no actual plans in place, and there is no mechanism with which he can do that. And the reason that's the case is so that he can back out of what he claimed to have done, like stopping the hospital, cleaning up the brown lands. If he adds his back-out excuse right into his statement, then we have what we've seen for the past two parliaments, which is little.
Vance Badaway.
Thank you, Larry. And I'll be very specific. The Liberals have a very solid plan on health care with respect to, the transfers to the provinces and making those transfers conditional, and ensure that the money that's transferred down to the provinces get placed in the proper areas. The second part of that is to ensure that they're very specific, actually rewarding provinces for certain programs that we see as a priority based on what we hear from the people that we represent. We are going to introduce a National Disabilities Act. We are going to make home care more available, prescription drugs more affordable, and mental health care more accessible. We will make it easier for more affordable methods to hire caregivers. We will make the compassionate care benefit easier to access, more flexible, and more inclusive. We will introduce policies as well as recommendations and encourage specific areas in our own communities by getting involved directly ourselves. Not simply just passing the buck to somebody else, whether it be a level of government or an organization, but getting involved as a member of Parliament ourselves to be very inclusive and encourage and empower local communities and organizations to work towards preventative health care, to put in place healthy lifestyle programs, to work with the youth and ensure that whether they're at school, away at school, whether they're at home or within their areas of friends, to really promote more healthy lifestyles, and of course with the middle age and those that are young at heart, the same thing, to ensure that we're being proactive versus reactive. But at the end of the day, it takes dollars to really transfer down to the provinces, but much more importantly is that the provinces do what those areas in the province actually need, and they proceed with those programs, not just simply putting money towards the vote-rich areas.
Malcolm Allen of the NDP.
Thank you, Larry. Clearly, when it comes to healthcare, there's an agreement that we all need to have a good health system that's robust and actually serves the folks. But the Canada Health Act actually is the mechanism how this happens. And in 2 years from now, we're not renewing the Canada Health Act. We're actually renewing the funding formula. In the case of the Conservatives, they're going to take out their escalator clause of 6% and reduce it. And so that's where $36 billion goes missing over the next period of time that they've decided to actually fund the system in. So what it takes is leadership at the federal level, with the Prime Minister, the leader of the government, sits down with the provincial premiers as an initial step and says, okay, here's some standards we'd like to work on, whether that be home care, whether that be mental health, whether that be long-term care beds, and then put money on the table and say, here's the targets we should meet across this country, set by the federal government for the provinces. Now the provinces are going to have to actually, if they want the money, going to have to actually say yes. They're going to sign a binding agreement that says we'll accept the monies, and we'll actually take on the role of providing the services. So the whole idea is in a federated system, you literally have to sit down and work through that. You don't have any choice. You can't implement it from the federal level, except on First Nations, Larry. When it comes to First Nations, we have an obligation as a federal government, and we will actually ensure that they get the health care that they deserve. First Nations in this country have nowhere close to the health care that we would enjoy in the South, and we may see gaps in what we see in the South. The gaps in First Nations are phenomenal. It's basically third world country style. That's what it is. It needs to end in this country. First Nations have to be put at the top of the list and treated the same way anyone else is when it comes to health care. So there is this, we have a whole policy slew of the monies that we would put into long-term care, to home care. That's the offer to the provinces. We would sit down and negotiate with them, not just simply tell them this is what you're going to get, because that's what happened this time. The government said, we're going to reduce the escalator clause, here's what you're getting, we're not willing to talk to you. In fact, we've never had a meeting. This Prime Minister has never met with First Ministers in this country, ever. He might call them one-on-one from time to time, but he's never convened a First Ministers conference with himself and the premiers of this country and the territorial leaders since he became the Prime Minister. That is a wrong-headed way to actually lead a federated country like Canada. We will change that. Tom Mulcair will sit down with the premiers, lay out our plan for health care, look for them to say yes, put the money into it, and take that leadership forward and get it enacted. That's how it works.
And that, if I may, Larry.
I've got about a minute here, so
If I may,
Lance,
that's a given. But Malcolm, you got to stop passing the buck. We do have the influence from the federal level. And the second point I want to make is that with all the strategies and the money that the NDP is looking at spending, it's all backloaded. We need that now. We need it immediate. We don't need it 5 to 10 to 15 years from now, which the NDP is proposing. It's all backloaded. And they're misleading those across the nation.
The healthcare funded is up front, it's not backloaded.
Ideally, it has to be right now. We need it here in Niagara Centre now,
and
not 5 to 10 years.
The healthcare funding is at the beginning of the mandate.
And you could tell by the words Malcolm's using, will, could, can, may. It's all forward thinking. It's all contingent. None of it is guaranteed. He avoided the question. There was no mechanism behind what he's saying.
We transfer funds from the federal level. What we require is a member of parliament that's going to work with the province and ensure that Niagara Centre gets their fair share of that funding. That's what it's going to come down to. All this other stuff is fluff, to be honest with you. Fluff.
All the money your party's cutting is fluff?
It's not being cut. As I said, $27 billion over the next 5 years.
I don't know how anybody believes anything you say.
Niagara Centre candidates, we're going to stop for a break. We'll be back with some closing remarks in just a moment.
Ooh, little fire there, guys.
Gotta make it interesting.
That fire.
God.
You're a liar.
Do you know what's going on?
Or you're a liar. To say that I said privatization, to say I'm not going to argue that because everybody knows how I feel.
Do you know what a
about
two-tier health care?
I absolutely do, and I never.
And you were bragging about it last night. You said Jack Layton even used the private health.
Under the OHIP umbrella. If you listen to me, the Shouldice Clinic is under the OHIP umbrella. Jack Layton didn't have to pay one extra cent. Am I correct on that, or am I wrong? Not an extra cent.
Can't tell you.
Oh.
So do you agree or disagree with two-tier health care?
If you turn your phone off.
You'll tell the truth?
People. Give me a break.
Wow.
What do you think
You
you're
guys
coming
know I
here and
record
turn your
everything.
phone
I
on?
post it right away.
Ridiculous.
Our time should be good, right? For 8 minutes.
I want people to know the truth. That's why I'm here, Leanna. You ain't going to get away with it again. You're not going to be nowhere near this guy this time. You're going to be far behind. Told Vance last night, I pray it's him if it's not me.
Quarter to the hour, here's your CKTB weather forecast. Cloudy for the afternoon, still a slight chance of showers. It'll continue windy, but clear skies coming tonight. As a matter of fact, a risk of frost in some areas as we drop down to 2 degrees, a little warmer near Lake Ontario. Tomorrow, sunshine, high of 15. Sunday, really nice, sunny but windy, high of 19. Thanksgiving Monday, sunny and windy and a high of 20. St. Catharines right now, the wind continues out of the west-northwest, almost 40 clicks at times, and downtown still 17 degrees.
One of the biggest problems in healthcare, when people are trying to define healthcare as being private versus not, is that Like quite frankly, right now in Ontario, you already have private healthcare. Doctors are private healthcare. They're in business for themselves. That's what they do. They have their practice. They get paid.
What
It's
did I
private.
say? It's exactly what I
So,
said.
you know, at the end of the day, when you look at anybody coming in to provide a service, what we have to make sure that the people recognize is who's paying for it.
But we can't overpay to provide better care. That's
But as long as OHIP covers it, it's regardless of who provides it. Period.
like I said last night. I've been in 46 United States over the past 4 years, and if you spend any time there, you see how atrocious that is. The system.
Absolutely.
And if any step toward that is a huge detriment to something that we
However-
consider part of our heritage here.
However, we can't confuse people providing services
To being
to be
yes,
privatization. It's not. As long as OHIP's covering it,
for profit.
exactly.
If it runs
As
under
long
the
as-
umbrella.
And it's regulated.
And we live that right now,
There's
and
a
it
fee
seems to be
structure that
working.
OHIP provides, and if you can work within it, you're in the game. If you
Exactly.
can't,
Then
you're not.
you're out. Exactly.
That's a very slippery slope.
No, because at the
If
end
it
of the
reduces wait times, if it reduces
Exactly.
the block,
Quality care.
yeah, then why is that a bad thing?
It's not.
Paid for by the campaign to elect
But
Dykstra.
OHIP has to cover it.
Absolutely.
And the only way OHIP will cover it is if they fall within the envelope.
And you know, that's not what she's steering toward.
Well, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm
You're,
just
you're
saying.
putting words in my mouth, which you've
I'm
been
talking
doing
about your
for-
party, Leanna. Despite the fact that you
I
tell
don't
everybody
know.
you don't agree with the party line all the time, but you obviously do.
I think I'm allowed to be my own person, David.
No, you're not.
Well, I
Not in your
am, but I
party. They
am.
kick you out.
And we quickly come to the end of our program. These debates do tend to go very quickly. They seem to. Of course, this debate will be podcast at 610ckTV.com. Click on Niagara Votes and go to the podcast section of our Niagara Votes page. Before we started, candidates drew random lots for the order of their opening and closing remarks. We are at the closing remark portion, and we begin this time with the NDP candidate for Niagara Centre, Malcolm Allen.
Well, thank you very much, Larry, and I appreciate the opportunity of being here with you today and my fellow candidates to discuss some of the issues affecting us in Niagara Centre and, of course, across the country. I mean, clearly, the plan that we have going forward, we actually think works for real Canadians. So, in other words, Harper's plan to raise the age of retirement from 65 to 67 is something we would actually overturn and bring back. Folks expected to retire at 65 and be eligible for OAS and GIS. We actually believe that's the correct thing to do. We'll actually return it to 65. When it comes to healthcare, we understand we need funding at the beginning of the term, not at the end of the term or later in the term. We also need long-term funding for sure, but we need to get money up front, and we need to do it now, and we intend to do that. When it comes to infrastructure, we have a longer plan. We're not going to just dump money at the beginning and then simply say, well, timelines run out, there's no more money. We're simply going to say to municipalities, because one of the things they've asked for is a stable funding model that says we can build the infrastructure we need across this country, because infrastructure is an economic driver. Not only does it put people to work immediately, but in the longer term, good infrastructure attracts manufacturers to actually come to a region to ensure that they actually can then create the jobs that they would create when they come and maintain themselves here in the longer term. And so when it comes to trade, we've been clear. We're a trading nation, but we can't enter into an unfair trade practice. This idea that somehow this is a brand new 800 million people market is just false. We already have free trade agreements with the United States, with Mexico, with Chile, with Peru. And so that 800 million is literally about 150 million. It really would be with Japan, who actually is the one who said we need to actually reduce the amount of content we put into manufacturers when it comes to cars and parts to 35%. Presently it's 62.5% under NAFTA. That trade deal will put in jeopardy tens of thousands of manufacturing and auto sector jobs across southwestern Ontario, including here right in Niagara Centre. It's not a good deal for us. It's not a good deal for workers, and we're not going to be bound to sign that deal because it doesn't protect the workers that we should be protecting.
Malcolm Allen of the NDP, closing remarks now from the Conservative candidate, Niagara Centre, Leanna Villela.
Thank you very much. Today you're going to hear, and you have heard from some career politicians, and different visions for Niagara Centre as a whole. However, the reasons that have brought me here into politics are very different. I value the close contact I have with the real issues affecting genuine people every day in our riding. And I find too often that some politicians lose touch with their voters, make empty promises. I'll never let that happen. I'm going to bring with me leadership based on 26 years of owning and operating a small business, 30 years of volunteer work dedicated to this community, and I bring with me a passion for this riding that cannot be matched by my opponents. Now, I've watched Prime Minister Harper prove time and time again his strong leadership in the face of so many challenges. And the Liberals, they're going to spend more money that we simply do not have. And the NDP are going to raise taxes, and they are going to drive job opportunities away. So a vote for me is going to be a vote for compassion for those in need. And a vote for me is a vote for someone who understands small businesses are the backbone to a thriving economy. And a vote for me is a vote for someone who's willing to fight for this community. I work for all of you. And this election is clearly about which leader has the experience to keep our economy strong and which leader is willing to take a strong stand to keep Canadians safe. And that leader is Prime Minister Harper. And your local leader is Leanna Villela. I look forward to your vote on October 19th. Thank you.
Leanna Villela of the Conservative Party. Now we go to the Green Party candidate, David Clow.
Thank you, sir. Hey, everybody. I want to just say what I've been saying over and over again, just like Leanna's been reading that speech over and over again. This is not about a party. We're not supposed to be voting about a party. They keep saying the same thing over and over again, but we don't know who's going to win this election. We have no clue. So to try and vote to save this country from Harper when we don't know which plan will be best, and to do that voting against our moral imperative is just the wrong thing to do. If we do that, we're really giving up our vote. And thankfully, this is not the system we're in right now. This electoral system advises us to vote for the person that we think will represent us best. And I'm not going to claim that I know what's best for this community like these other three are, or that my party knows what's best. My party's by far the most comprehensive as far as the plan goes, but we need to have a Canadian government that works together, that's responsible. And that means we need to have many, many different people working together to make sure that this works. This is not something where we just put all our faith into a party and then hope that it'll work. This is what I asked Jack Layton when I interviewed him one day. I said, "Sir, if I give you my vote, what are you going to do to ensure that we move from a representative democracy to a more direct democracy? How do I know that I'm not just handing you off my vote?" And this is what's been the problem with governments up till now. We hand them off our vote and then they never pull through on what they're promising. And everything that these folks are saying are all contingencies. They're all if-then. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold a town hall meeting once a week to make sure that I'm representing what you truly want. I'll be there. You tell me what you want. So now all this stuff that seems so monotonous and repetitive, if you don't want to hear it anymore, then elect me and I'll do whatever you want me to do. And that's what politics is supposed to be about. I'm not even going to be accepting a salary. This is not about that for me. I'm going to give the salary back to the community, and we're going to decide how to spend that on the very first town hall meeting. Thank you.
David Clow of the Green Party and Vance Badaway of the Liberals.
Well, thank you. And what I'm going to speak about is our plan, and it's tailor-made for Niagara Centre, and will finally deliver some of the needed results that our riding deserves. Our plan will, in fact, touch the lives of people on a daily basis. It's about the economy. It's about creating new work. It's about localized issues. It's about infrastructure, key investments now, not as the NDP has purported, 5, 10, 15 years, backloading all their promises. We need the attention immediately. We have to put dollars back into folks' residents' pockets, property taxpayers, water sewer ratepayers, infrastructure investments that will impact positively on those taxpayers in the local level. We need those investments now. Take a look around the region. Take a look at our roads, the water, sewer pipes that is landing on the backs of property taxpayers and water sewer ratepayers. We have to create that work. We have to invest in healthcare now, not 5 or 10 years from now. We have to create that balance in the middle class, youth strategies, protecting seniors. We can't afford to lose another 150,000 jobs, which is now part of the NDP platform. What came to mind the other day was Hudak and a half. You know, we just simply can't do that now. We need the help now. We need the support now. The NDP cutting back on transfers on health care, which is once again part of their plan. You know, and they can mislead and they can sit here and not be honest. We're going to call them on it. Backloading all promises, can't deliver on promises for years. We need this attention now. We haven't had it for the past 8 to 10 years. We need it now. The middle class can't wait. This election is about people, the needs for Niagara Centre, not politics. It's about getting the job done. Let me be clear. Yes, I fly the Liberal flag, and they're giving me that toolbox that's full to bring those resources back to Niagara Centre. But at the end of the day, I work for you, the residents, the people that I represent. The Liberal Party will in fact give me those resources. I will bring them back to Niagara Centre, and we will start seeing those results.
Vance Badaway of the Liberals, candidates of Niagara Centre, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Next week, the debate right here at this time, the riding of St. Catharines. Be sure to also check out the one-on-one candidate interviews of CKTB Morning Show with host Tim Dennis every weekday morning after 7:30.